Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Abhi, a 1L at Penn Law and a teacher and tutor here at the Demon. That's Damon, outreach coordinator and veteran liaison here at the Demon. Today we're joined by Anita, a 1L at Northeastern, also a Demon student alum, also Air Force vet, current reservist. Many, many titles, Anita. Thanks for joining us. Thanks so much for taking the time. You're another guest on our kind of like veteran spotlight series that Damon and I have been doing. We love bringing military service members and veterans onto the pod to kind of just show folks, hey, the military community, we can be a little skeptical of resources sometimes, but it helps to hear from real people and to hear how it helped them. So Anita, thanks for joining. You want to take a second, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, thanks for having me. Love to be here. I guess kind of purporting the like demon gospel. I really loved it. I've told anyone who's ever said anything about, oh, I'm interested in law school. I've been like, do you know about LSAT Demon? Because it really was a game changer. My story, like many who end up in law school, I wanted to be a lawyer since I was young. Um, and I finally got that opportunity, but it came in a crazy path, as a lot of people's, especially veterans who are in law school, ends up being. So for me, what that looked like is I went to undergrad at Florida State University. I did the ROTC program there. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do the educational delay, which, if you know about that, that means like you delay your commissioning, you get to go to law school, but you got to pay for it out of your own pocket. And there was a captain there as part of the cadre, and he was a finance guy. And he was like, that's not really a good financial decision
Right.
because you could get into the military, you could apply to what's called the FLEP program, Funded Legal Education Program, and you could have it all paid for. Or you could use your GI Bill if that doesn't work out for you, and you could still have it all paid for. And that way, you're not having this debt that a lot of people are stuck with when they end up going to law school,
Well,
which
and it's like 300 grand. Like it's not a small number, right? Like,
Not at all.
that's also
Not at
something
all.
that LSAT Demon they talk about many times about like when you're choosing your law school. I've said this so many times is about magnitude, about the magnitude of difference. And when we talk about like why I chose Northeastern, I can explain like how that really factored into it. But I decided, okay, fine, I'll choose contracting. So in the Air Force, that's a 64P. And so it's the closest thing to doing law without needing a law degree in the military, next to like a paralegal. But as an
Right.
officer, that was my option. So that's what I did. I was a political science and criminology, like double major. So I kind of just squeaked my way in there because you're supposed to have business. And I did it and I love it. I do love that job. I did it active duty for almost 8 years. I got to deploy and do it, which was even more fun, honestly. And I got through those 8 years and I was like, okay, this is great. But my now husband, we had been dating since college and we were like, okay, time to be together. And anyone who knows that mill to mill life knows that like it's a fight. No matter how much like the Air Force or whatever branch wants to tell you, like, we're here for you, we'll work with you. It's like always going to be a fight. And I didn't want to have to do that fight. So I transitioned to the reserves and am full time a Air Force civilian doing contracting. So now our,
nice.
our career field is already heavily civilianized. And so I was one of those people that is like stereotypically one day I was in my uniform, the next day I was in civilian clothes, same branch, same everything, like workload, and then I was a civilian. It was fantastic. It was such a timing thing. But I got to do that. And then we moved. I was in Virginia at the time, and then we moved. We're in Florida now. And that's when I was like, okay, now is the time to pick up law school. Because during college, I had done a couple LSAT prep courses when I thought maybe I would go right after college. And I did not do terrible, but I did not do well, especially for someone who was going to have to pay for law school out of her own pocket. It was not going to get me any good scholarships to any good schools. And so I ended up the first year I was active duty, I retook the LSAT thinking, I'd apply for the FLEP program, again, using the traditional materials, the books, and again, got like basically the exact same score. I think it was a point off. And so I was like, okay. So when I decided to take it more seriously and knew I was going to like really pursue law school this time, I was like, Googling like what are different types of LSAT Pro programs. And serendipitously, the Demon came up. And I'll be honest, like Ben is great, but like Nathan is what sold it for me because like he's so honest, sometimes it hurts. And it's like you know this, like the LSAT's not hard. And kind of when you hear that, you're like, you're right, it's not hard. Like it really isn't hard if you study and you know the material and you're like truly doing that and you're not distracted by like all the tips and tricks that these other books like kind of give you. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah,
coming to that point is really empowering. I think that that's like a one thing that makes LSAT Demon different is we seek to empower our students instead of trying to purport that the LSAT is hard and that like only through our program you can do this. We truly believe that like yes, we give you the tools, but it's you that makes the LSAT easy. It's your diligence, it's your, um, studies, your discipline that makes it easy. Um, so can you lay out a little bit more clearly the timeline from start to finish? So you said in college you started taking your LSAT courses. It didn't go so well. At what point were you still active duty when you really started studying and you found the demon, or was this after active duty?
it was you guys know what Skill Bridge is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on Skill Bridge. So it was like the last 6 months of my active duty time when I found LSAT Demon. And what I also love about the Demon is the different options and how easy it is to transition between them. So like when I first started, because my Skill Bridge, I was studying for I did like an educational skill bridge, so I was studying for my PMP. And so like I was a little more focused on that, trying to get that done because I had to successfully complete the skill bridge. And so I was a little more focused on that, lightly studying for the LSAT. And then probably 2 months or so went by. I passed the PMP, and then I was like, all right, let's full time this. And so that's when I attended live classes. That's when I was studying a lot more. And I just did it once. So I did about 6 months of studying from like light to, much more dedicated. And then I took the LSAT and I got a good enough score that I applied to the programs I knew I was going to apply to because of my life situation, because I'm full time. I needed like a flex JD, a part-time program.
Yeah.
Um, and just by the nature of the game, those scores are not as competitive as trying to get to Harvard or a full-time top 10 program.
Yeah.
So I was able to get that on my first try and got into the school I wanted.
That's awesome. And yeah, I think, I don't know where this myth comes from, but I think sometimes people are like, oh, LSAT Demon is like T14 or bust or like 175 or bust. And that's certainly not the case. We want whatever success means to you. So, like for Anita, whatever your score was that your goal was that got you to achieve your goals at the best legal education possible for the least amount of money possible. The second we help you achieve that, that's when we're happy. That's when you're happy. So,
Well, and that's
yeah.
where that magnitude discussion comes into play because so again, I knew I wasn't doing a top 14 school. Like that wasn't in the picture. And I needed a school that had one of these programs that could cater towards me. Most of them were online part-time programs, but there were a couple geographically that were like possible for me.
Yeah,
And so talking about magnitude, Northeastern has the number one rated Flex JD program.
that's awesome.
For I I don't know what it is currently, but at the time of me applying, it was the highest rated that you could go to. Now, Northeastern generally is like a top 50 school, and for their law school, a lot of the other flexible programs, which are, again, like you said, whatever works for that person. If they live in San Antonio and they just want a school they can commute to because they do want to be in person, then like St. Mary's is great for
St.
that.
Mary's, we've heard a lot about St. Mary's as well
Yeah,
for Flex program. Yeah.
exactly. So St. Mary's is great for that. But for me, I wanted to still be able to say, like, I want to say I got into the best law school I could. And
Right.
so like the score that the LSAT Demon helped me get was enough that I got a full scholarship basically to Northeastern. And so like
Wow.
That's an awesome outcome.
yeah, so it's like I don't pay for my Flex JD program, and that is 100% because of the score I got because of LSAT Demon. Now, could I have gone to a magnitude better school and maybe paid a little bit more? Technically, but not for like my life situation.
Exactly.
So for what works for me, this is the best school that I could go to. And I have like, again, I have told all the people that like LSAT Demon is the reason that got me there.
Well,
This
Anita,
is not a paid promotion, everyone.
you got there. You got there. To be clear,
Yeah.
it was your hard work, your work ethic, your discipline that got you there. But we were just happy to be alongside you along the way. And now, yeah, you're at a great law school for free. And that's just such an incredible. That's like such a drastically different outcome than taking out a bunch of debt to go to, also a good law. Like, there's a bunch of good law schools, but your bank account, feels
Well,
differently about different schools.
and I'm pretty close, like geographically, to Florida State,
Yeah,
where I went to my undergrad. And so I applied to Florida State as like a vanity application to say
sure.
I got into the law school. I did ask, like, hey, would you guys be willing to like work with me? And like most law schools, they're like, nope, 1L curriculum and study time is set. Like, we don't even allow you to work, which I totally get. Like, no, busting on them for that. But it was like, that is so fantastic for the person who gets to go there. And
Right.
I'm
Yeah,
so happy for like every single person in that class. But for me, like, I'm going to end up with the law degree that that person also has.
yeah,
So I'm not going to live in Boston, but I have great alumni connections through Northeastern, just like anyone in Tallahassee has through Florida State. So
Absolutely.
it's an equivalent, I think, an equivalent program in the sense that the outcome is the same. I'm not going to say that's the same case. Like if I went to Harvard and I went to Northeastern, like that's the magnitude discussion,
sure.
but that's also a different life path. Like for my law like practice, my journey in the future post law school, I also don't plan to practice big law. So that was a intentional informed decision of like
Right.
what I plan to use my law degree for is probably not the same thing that someone going to Harvard is using theirs for, which probably should go to Harvard. If you want to be in big
Yeah.
law and you want like a name and you want to be able to get hired easily, then that is the place for you, not the place for me.
Well, and that's the funny thing too is like there's a world where somebody gets into Harvard and gets a full ride to Northeastern, and Harvard doesn't give merit scholarships; they only give need-based scholarships. So there's a world where they might have to pay full price at Harvard, and they might get a full ride at Northeastern. But yeah, like you said, depending on your career path and depending on your goals, unless you want to be a Supreme Court justice or an attorney general for the state of whatever, you don't really need to go to like if you get
Right.
into Harvard and you want to go to Harvard, that's awesome.
Do it.
All power to you, all love to you. But it's also like $250,000 or $300,000 potentially
Which
to attend.
is another thing, like if anyone is interested, because they're tuning in here and they're like, oh, I've heard that the military has lawyers, JAGs. I talked to
Yeah,
many JAGs before I decided to not do the educational delay program. And a lot of the JAGs will say the program is not like becoming a JAG is not worth it because when you're saddled with debt from law school, because you're a public servant. So
Right.
you're not making, the bimodal hump that we always talk about with lawyers pay.
right.
You're on the lower end of that. You are not on the higher end. So if you have high debt from law school, you're hoping for that 20-year like federal servant, they discount all your loans because like otherwise you just don't make enough to pay it off. So that's like another
Right.
really big like benefit to being a little bit more like, what works for me and what do I want to do with my law degree? And if you want to be a JAG, then like don't think you need to saddle yourself with a lot of debt. Like go to the law school that works for you, that you get a great scholarship for, and then go be a JAG or whatever type of law you
And
want.
guess
Yeah.
what? You get the same cases as the guy who went to Harvard, right? Like
Yeah.
you're in the same uniform, you're in the same trial defense office, and you're defending the same soldiers from
Yeah.
or
Well,
airmen or marines from whatever stupid stuff they got into.
exactly. But you hopefully have a lot less stress on your shoulders because you're going home and you have your paid off car and you have your stuff, kind of lined up versus the guy with all the debt is like, oh, my life, you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So are you planning on practicing within the Air Force civilian kind of world after law school, or what's your path look like? And how did the military kind of shape your path after you went through the active duty?
Yeah, so again, I'm still a reservist, so which I love for my career field, it's IMA only. So like if you guys know what that is, like reserve is a whole speak that a lot of like even active duty, my husband will be like, "What?" Like I don't know what you're saying because
Can you actually, sorry to cut you off.
When you guys say
Can you,
muda, I'm just like, I don't know what a muda is, dude. I
I've
don't.
never heard of That's out of this world. I'm just a dumb Marine. Can you explain the IMA for anybody that may not know and what the difference between like the IMA is and the SMCR and how that might affect your decision making when it comes to law school or just life in general?
Yeah, it's a big difference. So in the Air Force, there's two main types of reservists. You have what are called TRs, traditional reservists. That's what like most people think of when they think of reserves. They think, oh, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. You have a unit that is working that weekend and those 2 weeks together. They have a bunch of different AFSCs together in the unit supporting the operations. Then there is IR, individual reservists, and there's a bunch of subcategories under IR. IRR are basically people who have like finished their like active duty commitment but still have a commitment to the military. So like if day zero popped off, they would be called up, excuse me. But then there's IMA, which is what I am. IMAs, individual mobilization augmentees. We are reservists who support active duty units. So I don't have like a unit that practices with me. I go and I do my 2 weeks a year at my active duty unit. And then my weekends are like as needed when on my own time. So that's the difference. And the reason that it matters is for contracting, we only do IMA. So, like I said, those weekends, easy peasy, I can do them on my own. I'm not worried about them conflicting with any, like, for instance, Northeastern, we have weekends that we go up in person for our Flex JD program. I don't have to worry about that falling on a drill weekend. I just schedule my stuff at a different time. If you're in a traditional reservist unit, you're also more likely to deploy, and that can really throw a wrench into things. Not saying you can't, plenty of people do school on deployment, but it depends on what your job is. You know, if you're going to be a lot more active and a lot more not on a schedule that can support your synchronous classes, if you're in a flexible program already, then that's really going to change things. And if you choose to be in person for any sort of program, then that's definitely going to change things because you're not going to be there. So you're going to have to take some sort of leave of absence. So if you're active duty and you're thinking, oh, I'll go reserves and then I'll do law school, I think you definitely hit the nail on the head. It's very important that you understand what type of program in law school you're going into and how that will fit with your reserve commitment.
Anita, I want to commend you on balancing so much shit. You
Yeah.
have you're literally you're balancing your full-time career,
Mhm.
you're a reservist, and you're doing law school. That is so cool. That is so cool.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Just in awe of your time management skills.
Yeah. I'm also super into romantasy. If you guys like, if we just wanted to like cut this, we
Oh, dude,
could just get a book.
hard cut to Amina's
Yeah.
book club, like
Yeah.
that she runs at the Demon. Yeah, no, that's really cool, and it sounds like you've made all of these really intentional choices with your time. Like you transitioned to your civilian career because it would give you more flexibility and control over your time. You're doing the reserves because it gives you flexibility. You're doing the Flex JD program because it gives you flexibility over your time. Could you tell everybody listening more about what a Flex JD program is and what kind of person it might be a good fit for versus maybe who it might not be a good fit for?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really hard question sometimes because some people think, they'll think automatically, I'm only good with classes in person. And that may be true. And if you just know that about yourself, then a Flex JD program that is online is not going to be for you. There are some like night, classes where programs that just do classes at night. And so I
Right.
would recommend one of those programs for someone who just knows themselves and knows that they need that like in-person contact. And that's even happened with like some of our Flex JD students have transitioned to the day program. So they started, and we were synchronous for the majority of our classes in the last 4 semesters. So even with synchronous parts of our classes, some people were like, nope, I need to be in person. This just isn't for me. So that's really important, is like knowing yourself and knowing that like if you cannot sit in front of a computer for a online course, if you cannot sit in front of a computer and pay attention for 3 hours, because they're longer classes because you're doing them once a week. If you can't do that, if you know yourself, then consider being in person. That being said, there's also this like hesitation that people have sometimes with Flex JD programs, especially online courses, where they're like, well, I just think I'm better in person. I'll learn better in person. And a lot of times I'm like, you're going to be just as distracted in person. Don't even tell me you're not on your laptop in class, Googling, ChatGPTing something else. Like, you
Or
know,
shopping on Amazon.
exactly.
Let's be real.
So even like taking it a deeper level of reflection is like, I also love being in person. I'm a gregarious person, but I know that regardless of the environment, in person, sitting here, I'm distracted because that's not how I learn. I don't learn well through like the Socratic method, that's not great for law school, but like I learn well with studying. I read, I study the material, and that's how I learn. And so as long as you know that, you know your method for learning, you can be honest with yourself, then if you can reflect on that and you say, yeah, I think I can handle and set aside time every week to do this, intentionally, using your word, then I think a Flex JD program is for you because that's what it requires. It's normally at least partially synchronous for some of the classes, especially the 1L doctrinal classes. And then when you get into your upper levels, it's going to probably be a lot of asynchronous classes. And that is all on you, to really guide yourself, to make sure you're doing everything. There's no, professor there to ask you cold called questions for you to like be scared into studying.
Right.
You have to do it on your own, self-motivated. So the flexibility is huge. And like you mentioned, my life is built around that flexibility because it's what I value above all.
Mhm.
And I'm willing to make myself sit down, give up. I mean, there's plenty of things like, oh, how do you do it all? Because I don't have much of a social life, so that's how I do it all. And my friends are very forgiving when I'm like, oh, sorry, I have law school. Or like my husband's like, want to go on the boat? And I'm like, I have law school. I'm studying. So like those are the things that like you have to be willing to do that trade-off if you want the flexibility. So the flexibility is there is not a law school who could have given me a large enough scholarship to cover my day job pay.
Right.
So I get to keep the day job and get to achieve my dream of going to law school. That's amazing for me, and that's enough for me. But if you're like, hey, I'm a super social person, I can't give up my nights and weekends, I need to be in person. Those are things that like, if you already know that about yourself, then the Flex JD program is probably not for you. But if you're like, this sounds pretty interesting, and I would like to keep my job and still do law school, then maybe it is for you. And I think it's really that easy.
We
And
have a lot of students who want to keep their jobs because it pays too well to give up, and or they have a family, they have kids, like they can't move to a random city. Their spouse has a job, and they can't just move to a random city to attend law school in person and also lose their income and also have to move their family. So we have a lot of students interested in the Flex JD program. I think they're going to really appreciate
yeah.
hearing from it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you actually get to keep your GI Bill benefits because you have a full tuition scholarship, right?
Yeah, so I do, but or I could. I guess I say I could. So my full tuition scholarship is like full tuition minus like some fees, which
Okay.
fees
They're
are
like
not cheap.
thousands of
Yeah,
Yeah.
dollars. Yeah.
thousands of dollars in fees. So and I'll say this is also something to consider if you're considering your GI Bill. So for Northeastern, they have these in-person events that we do about every other semester. When we have in-person events, I get paid the in-person rate for my MHA. So when you're non-active duty, so when you're active duty and you're doing your GI Bill, you don't get MHA because you have your BAH.
Yep.
And so you can't have both. But when you are reservists, you can still get MHA, the monthly housing allowance, under your GI Bill. When it's a straight online program, no in-person activities, you're getting like the average rate of an E5 across this like entire continental US, which is like $1,800 a
Right.
month. For when you're an in-person student, you are getting the in-person rate for whatever location your law school
By
is in.
zip code.
And so for the semesters that I am having to go to Boston for those weekends, they are considered in-person semesters, not just in-person weekends.
Wow.
And it is Boston, Massachusetts. So like there's nothing I can do about it. Like, hey, VA, if you want to change your rules, that's on you. But
Right.
how the system is currently set up is I make much more money on the semesters that we do that. So it actually benefits me to use my GI Bill because we make quite a bit of monthly allowance off of those
Right.
semesters. So it's another one of those like, would San Antonio have been great? I am sure it would. I have family in that area. However, San Antonio does not cost near as much as Boston does. So it's
Right.
like, it's a much more layered decision when you're
Yeah.
choosing to use your GI Bill for school than just like, oh, the tuition is less and I could probably just pay this out of pocket. It's like, okay, but the MHA is there as a thing as well as the book allowance, which is pennies, but it still like helps offset, you know, the 4 books you have to do, especially in a Flex JD program. It's a little bit better because I don't have to like do all the books at once. I only have like a couple books a semester.
That's really helpful for you to break that down, because I think it's a very common question we get. Military service members and veterans ask us, hey, do I have to seek a scholarship if I'm planning on using the GI Bill anyway? And I think Anita just gave us a really great nuanced answer, which is like,
absolutely.
it's better to have both. It never hurts to have your tuition covered by your scholarship and have your benefits to cover other stuff, housing allowance, the book allowance, stuff like
and
that.
the big thing too with the GI Bill is like, depending on what state you're in and if they have like a yellow ribbon or a Hazelwood Act, like it also like, do you have 80%? Do you have 100%? Is it going to last the entire time? Because a traditional law school, it would, because it's 36 months. For a Flex JD program, it is 48 months.
Oh.
And so it is going to extend past the length of my law school. So, or excuse me, it's going to not extend the entire time of my law school.
Right.
And so what that means is okay, that's great if it was only, you know, 9 semesters of paying a couple grand out of my own pocket, but then it's also another year that I have to pay out of my own pocket on top of that. So it's like, okay, no, I'll just let the GI Bill cover those couple grand every semester. And then when it comes to it, I'll only have 1 year that I'm having to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
So, which I can use that MHA that I've saved
There
and
you
put
go.
it towards that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like the Flex JD. You mentioned it's synchronous. It's also asynchronous. It's kind of a mishmash, or a combination, I suppose, is a better word for it. That kind of sounds like what the Demon is like, right? So you mentioned you liked the live classes, but you also at the end you kind of just ramped up and did a bunch of the work on your own. Could you give military people listening to this, people with families listening to this, people considering a Flex JD because they have a real life shit going on, could you give them advice on how best to use the Demon in the same way that it seems like you're leveraging all of your other commitments? Because it seems like the asynchronous/synchronous nature of the Demon fits pretty well into a scheme like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same conversation we just had about the Flex JD program and about like, are you good in person? Are you not good in person?
Right.
You know, some people like, you could take the synchronous Demon classes and be like, you know, this isn't really doing it for me. That's just not good for you. But there's so many other materials that like higher level membership is still worth it for you, because it's going to give you a lot more benefits that you can just like dive deep into. Versus, like I said, if you're like, you know, I'm interested in law school, but I don't know about this LSAT thing. Like let's say I think I'm a bad test taker and I just don't know. And so I kind of want to take like a practice test, as it were. We could talk about the advisement of that since it goes on your record and schools may see that and care. But say you do that, then you don't necessarily need to commit the funds to the premium level if you're not being serious about it. Or if you just want to take an LSAT on your own as a practice LSAT and you just want like a little bit of knowledge before you go into that practice LSAT, then do that lower level. Or, you know, right now your kids, it's not right now, but like in this summer, it's going to be the summer and your kids are going to be home and you don't have time. And so you're like, all right, I'm just going to study when I can. But then when your kids go back to school, you can do that full time, the synchronous classes, you can really hit the books hard. So then you take like a winter LSAT. So I think like just like the flexibility of the Flex JD program, LSAT Demon really lets you choose, choose your menu, choose your option, what
Yeah.
works best for you. And again, that's another great thing about the program. So many traditional LSAT study programs are here's your 10-week course. Now take it. And you're like, I have a wedding. I have like, especially if you're, I have my 2 weeks of AT. I don't have time. Like, so what are you supposed to do with that? And this allows you to be flexible. And maybe you take the LSAT and you're like, I didn't do too hot. And so you want to come back to it, but you want to slow roll it into your next one. Then you can take that same path where you're like, hey, I'm going to do some self-study at the beginning. And then when I get more serious, I'm going to do the other thing. And then, one of the, I think maybe underrated things of the Demon is like submitting a question and like getting
Yeah.
your question answered, because I had one of mine answered and like, you think like, oh, it's not worth it to submit one. But if you are really stuck on something and you really have a question about law school, about taking the LSAT, like submit the question. And there's like, again, I don't think there's anything fancy about my request, my question that was asked. So like submit it and hopefully it'll get answered. And like that hopefully is, like I said, is just an underrated part. Like it's so specific.
Yeah.
You submitted your very specific question and you got this very specific question answered, which is so cool.
Yeah, and I love that how you said there was nothing fancy about your question, which is so real. Because whenever I use the ask button, I also I wasn't like asking a novel question that had never been asked before, right? That can't be the bar. But what I love is that there's also nothing special about how we answer them. It's just people. It's just people like me and Damon on the other side that are like, oh, here's the answer to your question. So yeah, underrated feature for sure. Ask button. Love the ask button.
Awesome. Yeah, and to your point, the ask button isn't just for, well, we also have an admissions ask button or the opportunity to ask admissions counselors questions too. Um, and so whatever your question is, be it LSAT related or admissions related questions, you have the opportunity to have an answer on the other side, which is really amazing. And another thing I wanted to touch on, um, you were talking about synchronous versus asynchronous. The live plan really affords you the most opportunity for you to take advantage of whatever path you want to take. I mean, if you feel like taking a synchronous class, you can. If you only want to take asynchronous classes, you can always watch the videos afterwards, and you can flip flop whenever you decide to do so. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of resources, and a lot of amazing tools offered by the live plan.
Yeah, and look, folks, this isn't a fucking ad, right? Like
Right.
we're not trying to sell you anything, but the Demon has helped 3 veterans in this room, right? At least, so we're just trying to tell you how it helped us, so that if somebody's listening and they're on the fence, or maybe they're like, oh, I want to try a new thing because whatever I've been doing hasn't been working. Try the Demon. You can make a free account and test out the interface for free. We don't care if you pay us or not. We
Right.
just want to help people get outcomes like Anita, where she's going to a great school for literally $0 and kept all the flexibility that she wanted to keep in her life. So wait, Anita, I feel like for the record, where did you start? Where was your diagnostic, and where did you end up? Just because I think scores help people visualize stuff as well. Do you
Yeah.
remember?
I'll give you numbers. They could be off a
Sure.
couple of digits, but
I
um,
don't. We're not going to go back and check your. There's no way we can do that. Call up
um,
LSAC and get the
yeah,
official.
exactly. Can you please tell me if she's lying or not?
Right.
So I started, my very first one was like a 147.
Okay.
That was like
Yeah.
the very first time I ever took a diagnostic. And I was like, not too bad, like I don't know what I'm doing. And this is back when they had games. So it's a little different now. I feel like I kind of want to take an LSAT again and see what my score would be. Because that was definitely my weakest section. So it was like a 147. And then I got into Northeastern, I'm gonna say with a 165. So
Yeah, that sounds right. It
yeah.
sounds
That's
like a
awesome.
score probably above their median that would probably get you a good scholarship. So,
Which
um,
this is like a whole like topic too, is like when you're applying to Flex JD programs, you're probably going to see that their median is actually could be higher than their normal students, medians, because this is a whole new population of students who have not been able to be served previously. So like we have like a chemistry PhD in our class. Like he is so smart. Um,
Oh, wow.
he never had that opportunity to go to law school before, but he like I don't know what he got. This is an assumption. He probably killed his LSAT, like top the bar
Yeah.
because he's so smart. And so you'll see a lot of times that like Flex JD programs are actually getting more competitive than some of these more regional law schools, like in-person programs. So also
Yeah,
keep that in
it's
mind.
full of it's a room full of grown ass adults, right? Like it's like people with careers and people with a lot of experience and a lot of smarts like yourself. So I buy that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How long did it take you to go from the 147 to the 165?
So that was my first time. So that was
So there
in
were years between those.
yeah, that was in
Okay.
college. I would say my first diagnostic with LSAT Demon was probably closer to 156. I think it was
Okay.
like it was like higher 150s. So I definitely it was like a 10-point
Yeah.
jump from the beginning to the end, which again, for me, I was like, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I want. And for the level of input I gave, that is fantastic. Again, we mentioned this previously, but like you can do the live program, the highest plan. You could get in there. You could go every day. You can study. And again, if you want to go to Harvard, you should. You should be doing that. You should be watching all the classes. You should be doing all the diagnostics. You should really be studying and getting your head in the books. Again, I was doing a lot of other things still at the time. So I did what I could and I got a great score and I'm super happy with it. Um, of course, there's a vain part of me that's like, I wish it would have been X, Y, Z. But that's like such a small part when I see the outcome that I got, which is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, I was gonna say it'd be hard. I'd be hard pressed to imagine a better outcome than the one that you got
Yeah.
right now. So I think you're living in the best multiverse of them all.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Damon.
No, yeah. So, we're starting to get onto the topic, but I really am interested, if big law isn't the goal for you, what is the goal? And how did your military experience inform that goal,
Yeah, I'm sorry if you
if
asked
at all?
earlier. Yeah, if you kind of asked this, I feel like earlier, and I think I went on a tangent.
No,
So
that was on all me.
So,
All me.
so um, what I want to do is again centered around flexibility. So, my husband and I, we want to have kids, and I want to be able to have the flexibility to stay home with them or not, or take them to part-time daycare or not. We want that flexibility. Again, it's like our core value is flexibility. If you guys know, flexibility is the key to air power, and we're both Air Force. So it's just like it drives our life. So I want that.
That's what the Air Force. That's what the Air Force tells you. They look you in the eye. You've been on the airfield for hours waiting for a flight, and they look you in the eye and they go, "Flexibility is the power of the
Mhm.
airfield,"
Yeah.
and they kick you off your fucking flight.
Yeah,
That's exactly what
100%.
happens. Yeah.
We could go into a whole story about my path back from my deployment. Flexibility was the key.
Yeah.
But it was, with that being said, so keeping flexibility in mind is I want to transition. There's like so many backdoor calculations that I won't get into, but like basically in 5 years, I'm eligible as a civilian for deferred retirement.
Okay.
Deferred retirement means you get to start taking retirement at 65, but you can stop working now. And so I can buy back my military time, my active duty military time. I'll have about 13 years in, which gets me roughly 1,500 bucks in retirement, which is great for 5 years of work. And I plan to live to 100. So there we go. Like for 40
Awesome.
years, that like you're going to pay me 1,500 bucks. Sounds great. So after I hit 5 years, the idea that would be December of 2028. I graduate May of 2028. I hopefully pass the bar later that year. And then I complete my civil service time at the end of 28. And then I transition to doing contract law as like a contractor. So basically, right now, I work with a lot of small businesses who want to do business with the government. If you know anything about government acquisitions, it's a hassle. And there's a lot going on. And once you have a contract with the government, there's a lot of stuff that, like, if you did not work for the government, you may assume one thing and that is not what is going on. So
Right.
I think I can be a real assistance to those small businesses, but on a like ad hoc, like as they submit proposal basis, and provide that guidance. And being that, like, having my law degree behind that gives it like an extra level of like not just relying on my experience, because at some point my experience will be outdated, but being able to like also fold in my law knowledge to that and help them when they're submitting proposals. And then at that point, it be a very flexible job. I pick up as many jobs as I feel comfortable at the time. If children are in school, then I can pick up more. If children are not in school, then I just pick up less. So that's kind of the plan. And my law school, or like my active duty time that led me to law school, was all still so important. Because again, like, I'm not going to get any sort of like clients or job after um, getting out of my civil servant job if I didn't have such an extensive experience in the military. So being able to leverage that experience straight into, okay, now I have a law degree, and then go to each one of these companies and be like, hey, would you like to hire me as someone with 10 years of government contracting experience with a law degree? I swear I can help. So that's kind of the plan.
That's really
Did
cool.
going through college, you mentioned that you were in Air Force ROTC, you kind of knew that you wanted to go into contracting. Was this always the end goal? Was
It
this
kind of
always the end
sounds like
state?
it
Because it
sounds like
sounds like
a
one
great plan.
stream of consciousness.
I,
You knew since you were 12 years old exactly what you were going to be doing.
yeah, as a 12-year-old, I was like, government contracting, yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, no, I wish I could say that. Um, No, I didn't know what kind of law I wanted to practice. I just knew I wanted to go to law school. So I'll say this. When I was little, I really wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. Like, that was the dream. There was like president and then Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
And
And
I
then
still,
firefighter.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
We all have the dreams.
Yeah.
But as I grew up, I was like, ooh, Supreme Court justice, a little political for me. Don't love it. But would still love to be a judge. So that's like where I would love to go. But because my husband is active duty, I cannot settle in one place and get a judgeship. That's like, I can't work towards that at any point other than just practicing law and doing my best, and helping out like in the courthouse when I can. So the idea would be is I've always known that I wanted to do something in the judicial system. This is a in between until we settle. And then once we settle, that dream will pick back up to like, how can I achieve that goal? But this is something that, again, like, all the pieces have just like very serendipitously fallen into place. Being
Right.
able to move straight into a civilian job, not have to pick up a different workload. I didn't have to be trained. Like, I knew all my, coworkers and requirement owners. I knew all of them. So there was no like stress with that move. And then, moving to Florida, I've lived here before, like this area, like that was a very low stress move. And so like everything just like very worked out, like divine intervention. It was great. And so this is a great path that allows that flexibility, going back to what we're talking about, allows that flexibility until the end goal can be achieved, which I think, like, again, not to be like so nerdy, and like flexibility is the key to air power, but flexibility is also the key to happiness, because like if you're like so set on going to Harvard and you don't get that score and you don't get in, that is devastating. But if you're like, hey, would love that. If not, here's my other plan. If not, here's my other plan. And I think as military members, like, that is ingrained in us.
Yeah, dude. You got to have
So,
the pace plan, right? I mean,
yeah.
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 So like we already do that by nature. And so like doing that as part of your law school journey is so important. And that's again the same thing with like the plans for LSAT Demon, not to bring it back, but like 1 month you're going to be like, I'm going to do the live plan. This definitely happened. I'm going to do the live plan. I'm going to attend all the classes in person. I'm not going to do any recording. Like, I'm going to ask a question during class. You're like so set. And then life happens and you're sick the entire time. And so you're like, I'm only watching recordings, like, and like half listening. Like, you're doing your best. And that is that is so great. You're doing your best, and just allow yourself that grace to like be flexible, adjust, and then if you need to, I know people who have like put it off a year because they just weren't able to give it like what they needed, because that is really important. Even though like we can say that like the LSAT Demon is great, but you mentioned it previously, it really is your own self pace that's going to lead you to your
Yeah,
goal.
we can't take the test for you, right? Like,
No.
you have to take it yourself.
Yeah. And so like if you have a very specific end goal at the end of your law school career, then like you need to know what LSAT score is appropriate for that end goal. And then you're going to have to give in the effort to do that. LSAT Demon is a great tool to help you get there. But if you're not willing to give it the effort, or you're just unable to, then be willing to be flexible. Like, not to be like I was, but like, I was like, oh, I'm going right after law school, right after undergrad. And then it's like, no, you're actually not. Okay, well, I'm going to do the FLEP program. Nope, actually, they're not going to release you for that. Like, okay, I'm going to, nope, you're going to go get your MBA first. And so it's like, oh. And then we're finally here and we're doing the thing. So like, just be willing to be flexible. There are so many programs now that can work with you in your adult life. Doesn't have to be K through JD. Like, it's great.
And I think that that's really important because, especially for us older veterans who have spent some time in the military, we tend to think that our path is solidified already. And most of us are, for me, myself, I had an opportunity to go to PME resident, which would have incurred a further service commitment. And when I made the transition, it was hard because I wasn't confident that I could then transition into the next stage of my life. But having resources like LSAT Demon, having people, veterans that you could talk to, having a network helps you kind of understand that this is possible for you to do. And that it's, to your point about flexibility, it's not about short bursts of activity. It's about consistency over time. If you can hit for, most of the time across a 6-month period, you're going to be way more successful than if you do 2 hours a day for 3 weeks and then take the test 3 months later.
Yeah.
So I think your story lends to that perfectly, and it's absolutely awesome. Thank you.
And I think like with the benefit of hindsight, Anita, right? Like we can look back and go, whoa, your story, like there's this common thread. It makes so much sense. It all feels like it fell into place and everything went according to plan. But again, to your point, things only go to plan when you make plans and you are flexible with your planning and you accommodate life as it comes at you. So, man, I think you've done a phenomenal job taking the punches and rolling with all of the fun obstacles that life throws our way. And I mean, dude, I can't say enough how awesome your outcome is. I think you've got the dream, and I think this is going to resonate with so many people. There's people
absolutely
who are active duty right now that really needed to hear this from you. There's people who are transitioning out of military or active duty service, and they're a veteran for the first time, and they really need to hear this. Or they might be a government civilian, they might have a family, they might have a lot of shit going on, and they're wondering like, is this process for me? And I think hearing from somebody who you went from the 147 to the 165, over the course of years, and like you said, a lot of stuff like came up as an option and then didn't pan out or didn't fit your goals at the time, and you still got there and you're crushing it as a 1L and you're balancing all this awesome stuff. So hopefully the people that have stuck with us through this kind of longer conversation, but again, thank you so much for your time. The people who stuck through with this, hopefully folks, hey, if this resonated with you, let us know and shout Anita out in the comments and stuff. But yeah, what a great story, man. What a great story.
Absolutely.
We're super grateful to have you, Anita. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I do want to pitch it to Damon, our veteran liaison here at the Demon. Damon, what do you got going on in veteran land for the folks that have made it to the end of this pod? And maybe Anita's story resonated with them. Where can we point them? What's next? What are the next steps for the vets?
Yeah, so I would say head over to lsatdemon.com, check out a free plan, maybe take a diagnostic test if you haven't already. We've got a lot of really good opportunities coming up that I'm going to kind of reserve for us on the staff side. But we're really excited to kind of introduce more Demon material centered towards veterans. Another thing that I wanted to shout out is our partnership with Service to Schools. So Service to Schools is a nonprofit organization that focuses primarily on undergraduates, but also has a component with law school applicants. So we've partnered with them to offer every single veteran 25% off in perpetuity while they're studying with the Demon. So if you're interested, head over to Service to Schools, sign up to get a mentor. They help with whether it be your resume, um, you know, LSAT preparation, or your essay, your personal statement editing. They have amazing resources. So
My service to school mentor lit up my personal statement for law school, and I'm so grateful that she did that. I handed it in to her, obviously digitally, and she sent it back all marked up, and she was like, "Dude, this is terrible. This story is not about you. It's not compelling. It's a bad personal statement." And I was like, "Thank you so much for your honest feedback." So yeah. So military folks, please take advantage of service to school. It's the word service, the number 2, and then the word school.org, I think.
yep.
And yeah, you can upload your resume for review. You can upload personal statements for review. We're officially partnered with them, and we have them on the pod sometimes. And then we're gonna keep spotlighting veterans in our Demon community too. More vets like Anita who've just been crushing this process. I think where we want to leave this is your process. You should own it, and you shouldn't settle for something less than whatever it is that you want. So whatever it is that you value, right? So I think people with families, people with careers, I think flexibility is something that people value. Anita didn't settle for anything less than flexibility, and I think you've crushed it, Anita. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story. Thanks for your time as well, Damon. Folks, this has been
Thanks,
the
Abhi.
Demon Daily, our little veteran spotlight series. We're going to have more vets on. If you want to come on the pod, you can email daily@lsatdemon.com. Also, if you have a question, if vet or not, have a question for us or have a question for Anita, we'll forward it along, and maybe she can answer more questions about the JD Flex programs. But if you want to share LSAT news, law school news, you know where to find us, daily@lsatdemon.com. That's all we got. Thanks for listening.